afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am Dr. Diagnosis here with another interesting case. I was asked to look at this week where a young boy, let's call him Billy, was seen walking around, according to police, with an unusual gait and fell for what appeared to be no reason, narrowly missing being knocked over by a bus. Thankfully, Billy is now recovering in hospital undergoing tests, but the doctors are at a loss for what caused the fall. My first task was to find out as much as I could, and I questioned the police about what they meant by the unusual gait and asked them to describe Billy. They said he had huge ears, looked younger than his 14 years, and was walking with his stomach sticking out on his tippy toes along the road. This immediately led me to think about myopathy, a disease which affects the skeletal muscles, which often leads patients to walk this way due to their weak stomach muscles and tight heel cords. So I ordered a muscle enzyme test which showed elevated levels of both creatine kinase, CK, and aldolase. CK's job is to add phosphate group to creatine, a substance in your muscle cells that help your muscles produce energy by creating a high energy molecule, phosphocreatine. CK gets in your bloodstream when your muscle, heart, or brain experience acute damage and the muscle cell breaks open, and their contents, including creatine kinase, leak into your bloodstream. Aldolase is an enzyme that breaks down certain sugars to produce energy. The fact that both these were elevated means Billy's muscles really needed some energy and were also damaged, and I also think it indicated he had myopathy. But the question was why? To rule out toxic myopathy, I ordered blood tests. I wanted to see if there were any steroids, cholesterol, lowering drugs, or in fact any medicines that could be causing a toxic overload. Even though he was young, I also included tests such for toxins as alcohol and toluene, which is found in paste and glues. They all came back negative. What about the electrolyte imbalance? I wondered if he was being exposed to too many minerals like potassium and magnesium, but nothing turned up in the blood work. Endocrine myopathy? Maybe, as hormones like thyroid and parathyroid can interfere with muscle function, so I ordered a thyroid gland test and tested his calcium levels. I also put poor Billy through a CT scan to check the size of his adrenal glands, but everything was normal. So whatever was causing this myopathy must be inherited. There are 3 types of inherited myopathy: mitochondrial, metabolic, and muscular, and that there was a new area to explore involving family histories and gene testing. So I parked that as that was not the only symptoms. So, the police had talked to Billy's mom, who said that he was not often sick, constantly tired but not often sick, but that she had often noticed that he was out of breath when at rest and complained of swollen ankles and feet. This is a big indicator of a heart condition. So, I ordered some more blood tests to check out his iron and B-type natriuretic peptide levels, BNP. Higher than normal BNP can mean your heart isn't pumping as much blood through your body. Levels greater than 100 picograms per milliliter are abnormal, and Billy's results were higher than that, suggesting that Billy had cardiomyopathy, a weakness in the heart muscles, but I need to confirm it with an EKG, or electrocardiogram. An EKG records your heart's electrical activity, showing how fast your heart is beating and whether its rhythm is steady or irregular. EKG waves will show abnormalities in patients with cardiomyopathy, and Billy's EKG waves were very irregular. What I had so far was a cardiomyopathy and muscular myopathy, but those were symptoms. What was causing it? I looked at Billy's white blood cell count and it was low. Normal white blood cell counts are 4,500 to 11,000 WBCs per microliter. Billy's was around 1,500 per microliter, leading me to believe that he had neutropenia. The causes of neutropenia could be HIV, AIDS, but we had already ruled that out in a blood test, and his blood showed no presence of leukemia cells, but they do not always show. I didn't want, at this stage, to give him a bone marrow test, as I also kept thinking Billy's mother's comments that he was very rarely sick. I started to think, perhaps the white blood cell count was not always low, that it fluctuated, so I was looking for some disease which caused the white blood cell count to fluctuate. I started to think of one particular disease where very low white blood cell counts could either be chronic, absent, or more of a cyclic in nature, with a cycle being anywhere from 1 to 28 days. This possible cycle of low blood cells count gave me the break that I'd been looking for, so I ordered the 3-methylglutaconic acid test, which could have been done by testing either urine or blood. Whilst awaiting the results, I thought about the facial features of patients with the disease I was considering. They have a round face with a prominent chin and full cheeks. The ears are large, and they have deep set eyes, all of which support the initial description of the police. The results came back that the levels of 3-methylglutaconic acid were 20 times higher than those in a healthy male that age. What a breakthrough. So where was I? I had a boy with an inherited musculomyopathy, cardiomyopathy, and elevated acid in his urine, which is believed to leak from the mitochondria, suggesting a long-chain fatty acid oxidation defect may be present. I knew that any child with these organic acid patterns and cardiomyopathy should clearly prompt the consideration of the diagnosis of Barth syndrome. The only thing left for me to do was a gene test. Finding the tafazin gene, TAZ, also called G45, a mutation that clearly disables protein synthesis or function, is the most definitive test for Barth syndrome. I am expecting the results any minute now, so whilst we wait, I'll explain to you what Barth syndrome is. So, mitochondria is found in all body cells except for a few, such as red blood cells. Its role is to provide energy via oxidative phosphorylation, which generates ATP by utilizing the energy released during the oxidation from the food we eat. Energy, or ATP, is used in turn as the primary energy source for most biochemical and physiological processes, such as growth, movement, and homeostasis. It is also responsible for cell death, storing calcium, and heat production. The mitochondria generates a lot of this energy by utilizing fatty acids. Barth syndrome is a rare X-linked disorder of the phospholipid in the mitochondrial membrane called cardiolipin. It is caused by a mutation of the tafazin gene, which provides instructions for making a protein called tafazin, which alters a fat called cardiolipin. Fats are the main building blocks of the mitochondrial membrane bilayers, and cardiolipin's role is like that of a scaffold. It maintains the shape of the mitochondrial inner membrane and allows it to bend. It also regulates the activity of a variety of enzymes and proteins. Cardiolipin deficiency decreases the respiratory performance and increases ROS generation, a toxic byproduct of aerobic metabolism. The results show that Billy has mutations on his tafazin gene, and this decrease in respiratory performance was causing all the symptoms that Billy has, as his body is not getting all the energy it needs. Unfortunately, there was no cure for Billy. Each symptom will have to be treated individually as best they can during the reduced number of years he has left. It is rarely diagnosed, with approximately 200 living males worldwide currently known to the Barth Syndrome Foundation. Hey, it's Dr. Diagnosis here. I want to thank everyone behind the camera, the producers. Just thank you. This was a great show. I'll see you guys next week.